before we start with the Joe Kent thing, I want to make things really, really clear. My job is not to convince you of one thing or another, and I've been saying since this war began, I am tired of people with their opinions. I have my opinion. I will tell you when it is my opinion, but it is important to establish facts first, and not a lot of people are doing that. And facts matter. They matter. So I want to go through some of the facts, but I also want to start with a couple of disclaimers. I want you to know that as I take you through this, I did not buy nor use, they're just days away from having a nuke as justification for this war. In fact, I rejected that right off the top. I've done several monologues on this. The first day I was on the air with the war, that's one of the first things I said. I don't accept that as a reason for going in, because fool me once, shame on you. Also, I am not questioning anyone's right to question this war, question the government, question our spy agencies, question anything all the way down to me. That is important in a republic. I also don't fault anyone for questioning this war, whether it's in the best interest of the United States of America, especially after the debacle that was Iraq and Afghanistan. I also don't fault anybody for looking at the actual motives of all of our allies. We should, because allies are not the United States of America. They have different motives, just as we do. And that's why I caution not to judge against things that others may do, that we ourselves with our own State Department do to further our own national interests. If you're going to fault somebody saying they're trying to convince us to do something that's not in our national interest, your problem is really not with that government, because that's the job of their Secretary of State or Foreign Minister, just like Marco Rubio. That's Marco Rubio's job. He goes in and Donald Trump says, get him on board with this. Well, it may not be in their best interest. Find a way. Get them on board. That's what they do. So if you have a problem with somebody being duped, the problem is with the politicians, not the other country. And this is where I believe Joe goes way awry on this. If true, his beef should be with our CIA, as well as the President of the United States. Now, he's making a beef with the CIA, but not with the President. But that's where the buck stops. If China dupes our leaders, is that their fault or our fault? And I just want to direct you back to Donald Trump. He's been very, very clear. How did we get into all of these wars? How do we lose all these financial deals? What does he say over and over again? Because we had idiots running our country. We had presidents who just didn't get it. So that's where the fault would lie. But this is an incredible charge that he made, and it has deep ramifications. Now, I want you also to know, I have pretty good deep sources on this issue, but none of them will go on record due to security clearances and everything else. So I dismiss those things. I have to when I'm talking to you, because I can only give you as evidence in something this important what I can find in open sources. I want to be as fair as possible. So let me look at the facts of what happened yesterday with Joe Kent, okay, and give you the cleanest read I can give to you. Joe Kent's resignation is real. We have to start with that, because do you even know what's real anymore? This is real, and at the core, it is explosive. He resigned as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. He said Iran posed no imminent threat. He accused Israel and its allies in America and American media for pushing the United States into war that benefited Israel. Okay. That makes this the first major senior break inside this administration over this conflict, or really pretty much anything in this term. Now, Trump yesterday came out and brushed him off as weak on security, yada, yada, yada. The White House and Tulsi Gabbard defended the president's judgment and said he acted on compelling evidence. Now, Joe Kent is not some random bureaucrat. He is and should be honored as such, but it doesn't give you blanket immunity from questioning. He is a decorated veteran, a war hero, former Special Forces, CIA officer, two-time congressional candidate, and also a man long identified with American First, an anti-interventionist wing of the right. He is a much more of a libertarian, okay? He's also been controversial for his association with, far-right figures, talking about the election and January 6th and everything else. And so that's why the left has given him lots and lots of criticism as a conspiracy theorist, et cetera, et cetera. So the public, the American public, have two truths to look at him, okay? He's a serious combat veteran, deep resume. He's also spent years moving in circles where grievance and extremism and ideological drift are also visible. Now, I wouldn't normally bring this up, but he's got something else I'm going to bring up here in a second that is important to say, that ideological drift. Okay. He has a deep tragedy in the center of his life, and that is absolutely real. His first wife, Shannon Kent, highly decorated Navy cryptologic technician. She was killed in, I think, 2019. An ISIS suicide bomber came into Syria, blew himself up, and that was during Operation Inherent Resolve. Official Navy and NSA memorial materials describe her as, killed in the line of duty. ISIS claimed responsibility for that attack. Now he has a new wife. And this is important. And normally I would not get into, somebody's wife unless it's an influencing factor and there is something that is very different about the wife. Okay. His current wife, multiple reports identify her as Heather Kaiser and say that she has contributed to something called the Greystone. This is an outlet, a media outlet, founded by Max Blumenthal. Who's Max Blumenthal? What is this outlet? Blumenthal wrote for something called Al-Akbar. That is a pro-Hezbollah, pro-Assad outlet. Now, he resigned in 2012 over the Syria coverage, but he's also a contributor to Russian state media, RT, and Al Jazeera, which is Qatari money. The Gray Zone, which he edits, has been criticized as anti-West, anti-Israel, pro-Russia, pro-Iran. Also, he was platformed at an Alexander Dugin-linked event. If you've listened to this show, I've been talking about Alexander Dugin and how dangerous this guy is since before the turn of the century. I first found him when he said that America would break up into 10 different zones, and they were trying to create a civil war in America. And that was like 1997 or 8. Started talking about him. He is very, very dangerous. Okay, this event called the Forum of the Future 2050 was in Moscow in 2025, and that's where Blumenthal spoke on the same stage with Alexander Dugin. Now, I want you to know, crimes of the wife are not crimes of the husband. There's no crime with his wife, but it's a saying. But I learned a very important lesson in my big fat Greek wedding, and that is the man may be the head, but the wife is the neck, and she turns the head. And anybody who is married knows. You know, if your wife is on a path, dude, you got a choice, okay? Now, I don't find any solid reporting that proves that she's an employee of Blumenthal, in the formal sense. But she did write for the site. So I don't know any deeper than that. Those connections are being argued online, but the evidence available does not support she is a Dugin puppet or a supporter of the Red-Green Alliance as established fact. However, you can draw an inference from that, but that's not fact. That said, the ideological ecosystem that he is in and his wife is in, it is curious to me that he has taken a 180-degree turn after they got together, and very, very recently. I can't use that information. Let me just go back to 2020. He tweeted in 2020, "We should not sit and wait for the next attack. Wipe Iran's ballistic capability out." Another one, "I personally think we should have crushed their ballistic and nuclear capability, but Trump has a plan, and he has earned the trust of any clear-eyed observer." So he wanted to go further at that time. Why the change? Could it be the influence of Duginites? Dugin is widely described by scholars and analysts as far-right, in the scary sense, ultra-nationalist, anti-liberal Russian ideologue whose work argues for civilizational struggle, and it's against the West and the American power, and he's calling for chaos. He is absolutely aligned with different theological endings. He is absolutely aligned with the mullahs in Iran. He is not just a Russian professor with opinions. He has long been treated as an intellectual node in a broader anti-Western network that seeks really bizarre alliances across the far right and the far left, and it's all united around anti-liberal democracy, anti-NATO, anti-the United States. Okay, so here's all of those are the facts. So what is actually happening here? Let me give you that in 60 seconds. First, burn a launcher. You're at home in the middle of the day, going about normal, quiet afternoon when something stops you cold. Not a doorbell, not a knock, but the sound of somebody testing your doorknob. And at first you might wait, thinking it as a mistake. And then you hear footsteps moving along the side of the house. Whoever has decided to try to get in has tried to get in another way. And in that moment, everything becomes very, very clear. This isn't somebody, at the wrong address. This is someone seeing if your home is an easy target. And that's when you realize how important it is to have an option that, doesn't require you to escalate to legal force. It still gives you ways to protect yourself and create distance if you need it. And that is a burn a launcher. That's what it's designed for. It's a compact device that fires kinetic and pepper projectiles designed to stop a threat without using a firearm. And it is legal in all 50 states, and you don't need a permit. Go to Byrna.com/Glenn. Learn more. Try before you buy at a Sportsman's Warehouse located near you. It's Byrna, Byrna, Byrna.com/Glenn. 10 seconds, station ID. Okay. So what you'll find on social media and other broadcasters or podcasters is, this guy has a windsock. He's a total fraud. No, he's a man of principle and a decorated war hero. That's not the deepest question we should be answering here. This guy chose to make an accusation of the highest possible consequence, that the United States was pushed into a war by Israeli pressure and misinformation. He, without presenting the proof required for a charge that large. He is not a podcaster guessing from the bleachers. This is a guy inside the intelligence community, inside, at the top of the, spy apparatus. If he has a charge like that, he has evidence of manipulated intelligence or political deception. That evidence belongs before Congress, inspector generals, and the American people. Show me the proof. It's important because I can't dismiss you, but I also can't accept it without you coming with proof. You can't just say, when you call fire, fire, everybody has to pay attention, okay, and run because there might be a fire. That's not the same as this. When you say these things, you're required to step to the plate with truth. Why? Multiple sources inside the White House, now on record, confirm that he had been kicked out of every classified briefing on Iran for weeks. He lost access at the beginning of the year due to him being suspected of leaks. So he was already on the out. And then when they started taking briefings on this, he was not in any of those briefings. So how would he know what the president was basing things on? Honestly, due to his leaks, I'm wondering if anybody else has been burned by leaks from him in the past. You know, what is real, what is not? How accurate were the past leaks? I don't know, but let's get back to the proof. The American system does not ask you to prove you're innocent. It asks you to prove the guilt. That's up to the accuser. So if his allegations are true, he must present proof and they must be looked into. However, if he doesn't have that proof, then what he just released was not a principled warning. It was an accelerant. I said this yesterday. You know, the country is already on fire with hatred and suspicion and real anti-Semitism. And an accusation like this is just gasoline. Now, Tulsi Gabbard's statement, let me talk about her for a minute. It's revealing for the same reason. She defended Trump's authority and the chain of command, but she appears to have framed the conclusion as the president's judgment after reviewing intelligence rather than saying the intelligence community had clearly established an imminent threat. Now, I don't know if that is why she didn't do that. Is that a possible setup? Is she going to run for president? Does she need this? I don't know what's happening. Many people are reading her statement as institutional cover rather than a full-throated factual rebuttal of Kent. It's kind of the middle ground. But again, it's just being inferred. But it's a grounded one. So what is actually happening? This looks like a collision to me of three different forces. First, a real fracture inside the American First Coalition over Iran and Israel. Second, Kent's long-standing anti-interventionist instinct sharpened by the trauma of losing his first wife. Third, an information ecosystem that too often slides from skepticism about war into conspiratorial narratives about hidden ethnic or foreign control. And that last step is where republics get poisoned. Opposition to a war, this war or any war, can be principled. Opposition against Israel can be principled. But claims that the Jews or Israel's lobby secretly dragging America into a war require extraordinary proof. Why? Because history teaches us exactly where this language leads when it's flung into a frightened public without any evidence. So I can't tell you anything other than those things are facts. Now let me give you my opinion. Something's not right here. He changed his opinion dramatically. He has connections to Dugan-like people, which is very dangerous and very hard to spot and get away from once you've been sucked into that event horizon, if you will. Something's wrong. I don't trust it, but I am open to seeing any proof. Not hearsay, proof. This requires proof. All right, let me tell you about Rough Greens. Your dog, never went to culinary school. And I had German Shepherds, and they're pretty good. I mean, they could have gone to... Anyway, his body, knows the difference between real nutrition and food that just fills the bowl, but he can't tell you what it is. He shows you what the problem is with things like energy, his coat, how he moves, how he recovers, how he ages over time. And most of us, we feed our dogs same things every day, and we try to do our best. But if we're feeding them kibble food, that's dead food. It's been so highly processed and baked at such a high temperature that it can sit on a shelf for over 2 years and not have any kind of mold on it or anything. I mean, that's not real food. You would never feed that to your kids. We just feed it to our dogs because it fills them up. But they need the nutrition put back in, and that is exactly why Rough Greens is here. Rough Greens is now offering a free Jumpstart trial bag. You just cover shipping. Use the discount code Beck. Claim your free Jumpstart trial bag at roughgreens.com. It's full of all the vitamins, minerals, nutrients, probiotics, all the stuff that your dog needs. You just sprinkle a little bit of this on top of your dog's food. They love it, and you'll see a difference in your dog. Roughgreens.com, promo code Beck.
Tomorrow night is the big night. Torch insiders can see an amazing special on Islam's takeover of the West. Don't miss it. Join Torch today, glennbeck.com/torch.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Butchell. If you're not watching us on glennbeck.com, go to glennbeck.com right now, /the torch. If you're on another platform, go there right now, subscribe, get into this conversation right now. We had an amazing debate conversation yesterday on everything around this Joe Ken thing, but that is just a small fraction of what we talk about every single day. You don't want those dang commercials. We don't have any time for that. You don't want commercials. You want the insider show. You want insider access. That's part of what you will get, but also this special that's coming up on Thursday and a ton of other content. So go to glennbeck.com /torch right now and subscribe. You will not be disappointed. I guarantee it. I'm looking through this Joe Ken thing, all of your comments. I'm going to get to quite a few of them here in a couple of seconds. I posted this link in the chat, in the insider chat, but as predicted, I think I tweeted yesterday, interview with Tucker in 3, 2. Well, Tucker just tweeted this 1 hour ago. Joe Kent live on TCN at 6 p.m. Eastern time tonight. You know, back in my military days, we'd call this a coordinated operation. That's what we'd call it. I'm not saying that's what this is. Nah, I'm not. Yeah, allegedly coordinated. It's all allegedly. Let's just say it's highly suspicious. And, by the way, back in my military days, I can literally say whatever I want. I can completely change my viewpoints 180 degrees and say crazy stuff. And I am totally off limits. You can't question that. I served in Afghanistan. You can't call me out on anything. Apparently, that's what some people are saying about Joe Kent. Because what do you mean? We can't talk about how he changed completely, just a complete flip. Everything, made wild accusations with zero proof backing it up. You cannot talk about that because he served multiple tours, combat tours, supposedly. Shut up. That's stupid. As a veteran, shut up. That is not a legit. You're just trying to shut down conversation. That's all you're trying to do. So please just shut up with that. You can respect what he did then, but if someone completely changes just because they served in the military, does not make them free of scrutiny. It does not. Otherwise, I could literally say whatever. 80% of the country who has now served after 20 plus years of war could say whatever the heck they wanted. It does not work that way. I'm sorry. But we did not know a lot of the facts yesterday when this news first came out. This guy, in very public forums, whether it be podcasts, X, other social media interviews, let's go through what he was. He was for Israel. Everything was surrounded when it came to terrorism, Hamas, Israel, Iran, everything was in Israel's favor. In fact, during Trump's first term, back in 2020, Joe Kent was saying, look, we need to go further. Like Donald Trump was easy on the Iranians. I would have been all for going after their nuclear infrastructure, taking out their proxies. Basically, everything that's happening in the Iran war today, Joe Kent was for. He was absolutely for. How do we explain this 180-degree turn? We can't. Because he went from being all about more attacks, protecting Israel, all these different things, to all of a sudden, he gets accused of being a leaker. And they suspect that he's a leaker of multiple different things. He gets kicked out of classified briefings. This was, I think, around the start of the year, maybe around December, January. He did not have any actionable intel on what justified the war or any of the attack plans. He had no information on it. So how does he have any information that's credible to say anything at all about if Israel somehow convinced the most unlikely person, he's the most unlikely influenced person in the world right now, President Donald Trump, who can't be influenced to do anything. But suddenly Israel is pushing a button like a machine and telling him to do these things. But he didn't have any information on it. He was not in a single classified briefing on it, but he has the information. And suddenly, the real question is, what changed his mind? Because you can't do a complete 180-degree flip and then run to Tucker Carlson and do an interview with him about it, about how, there's a certain faction within the right-wing party now that wants to blame Israel for everything. How does that happen? Look, It's a great debate. I look forward to reading some more of your comments on it. I would just love to know, if you're going to make an accusation, you provide zero evidence, and it now comes out that you had access to no evidence. What are you basing this off of? And how was that evidence that you do not have, will not provide? How was it so convincing that it completely changed your world mindset, your strategic mindset, and it goes against everything you believed a few months ago, a couple years ago? How does that completely shift? We'll see. George AI today is going to be all about accusations of guilt, presumption of innocence. Are people that were a part of the government held to a higher standard? Are they not? Free speech, all of this into the debate on serious accusations. I was just curious what the founders might think about that. I didn't get to a single comment. I'm going to get to way more of your comment. Please get in there and debate. I'll be watching the whole thing. But now here's Glenn.
This whole time, we've feared. We fought against Islamic terrorism. But the Islamist threat is even more terrifying than that. They're here. They've been here. They've waited. And faster than ever, they're making their moves. They're Islamists.
Islamists want the United States to resemble Islamic republics in the Middle East.
Our goal is to make America Islam. Real Islamic State.
They're among us. They're among our politicians, among our city leaders.
There's a template and a playbook that is in motion.
We're living here to shift this country's political direction. Engaging in dawah, and dawah is essential.
And most of the Western world isn't even aware of what's happening.
As a doctor, I don't just treat symptoms. Terrorism is a symptom. The disease, the cancer, is political Islam.
It's incompatible with everything that America and the Western world stands for.
Honor violence, honor killings, child marriage. We have this idea that, we can't judge other cultures.
And it's happening in more ways than you could imagine.
This is economic jihad.
So which side will win the ideological battle for the West? Tomorrow night at 8 p.m., you can find out all the information and join us on Torch at stoptheconquest.com. Stoptheconquest.com. That's tomorrow night, 8 p.m. live. By the way, we're on Torches now on Roku. Thank you, Roku, for getting that done for us for the special. We sure appreciate it.
But how do they find the app? Is it through Torch or Glenn Beck? Do you search for Glenn Beck on Roku?
I don't know.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Search Glenn Beck. That's one of the questions that the insiders were asking.
Okay.
Search Glenn Beck app.
Has anybody used it yet? I know it's. I think it came up.
Oh, they're using it.
They're using it good. So you can get Torch now. Just search for Glenn Beck on the app with Roku, and you can watch it on your Roku as of today. I wanted to bring Jason Buttrill in with us, chief researcher, and also kind of head military guy. I've been watching all of the stuff for military. Love to hear your take on Joe Kent and what you think is happening.
Well, first of all, it really annoys me that some people are trying to just shut down all conversations on Joe Kent because they refer back to his veteran status and what he has done in the past.
And he's done great stuff.
Which he's done great stuff.
Yeah.
And
again, hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. You can do it. It's called chewing gum and walking. You can do two things at once. He can be a great military hero and something that you got to go, wait a minute, what is happening here?
Right. Because otherwise, I am also a veteran. I also served in a foreign war in Afghanistan. I can break every single FCC rule that's out there right now. I'm going to start right now.
No, let's not.
Wait.
Let's not.
Oh,
No.
I thought that I was absolved.
No, you don't absolve. You don't get absolved because you are a veteran.
That was my one shot. I was just going to go for it.
No, really bad idea.
But so that, for one, irks me. But for two, his shift in ideology is something that I cannot explain. I don't think anyone can explain right now. You can't go from having the mindset that you had just a few years ago, probably just a few months ago. I don't know when this shift happened, but you can't go from knowing that Iran is the global state sponsor of terror, the number one, which he has said in the past. Mm-hmm. You can't go from saying, look, we have to support Israel in this fight against Iran because they are so bad with their proxies. Everything has destabilized the entire region, and they threaten us. You believe that. You say that Donald Trump, during his first term, should have gone farther, and these are the things he lists off. Attacking nuclear sites, attacking their ability to project power outside the country, attacking proxies. You have to do that. Almost not a direct quote, but pretty much around what he was saying was, you need to address those things. I wish he would have, but he didn't. But I trust that the president has a plan. Everything he was describing a few years ago is exactly what the war is looking like today.
So let me ask you, as we look for an answer on what happened, the guy is crazy, the guy's anti-Semitic, blah, blah, blah. There might be a really simple answer to this. 2028. The MAGA world is up for grabs. Donald Trump is not going to be the head of MAGA. So what does MAGA mean? That's what's being defined right now. All of this just may be, I hate to be so cynical here, and again, my opinion, but I'm looking for things that make sense to me. Everything is about power. Everything is always about power. Power, money, control, and you have the biggest movement in America in my lifetime, MAGA. And it's going to be handed off to somebody. Somebody is going to take this. Now, there are those that would say, split it. So there is the left that would love to see us split. But there are also those who have such different viewpoints on what MAGA should do. They will not take on Donald Trump. And this is my key point with Joe. Joe, your argument is actually with Donald Trump. If what you say is true, then your argument is with Donald Trump, because he's not a moron. He's not a patsy. He's not senile. He's not stupid. I can guarantee you, I know the man surrounds himself. The guy spent 30 minutes on the phone with me one time, which he did not have to do, talking about trade. I want to hear your argument against trade. Tell me, why are you against tariffs? He didn't need to do that, but he actually listened and engaged. He surrounds himself with people who have his worldview, but he also, equally as important, brings people in that have a different point of view. So there's no way he just took all of he's too smart for he knows that was the reason we got into Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction. He has been preaching against that weapons of mass destruction lie of George W. Bush since the day he said it. So somebody walks into his office and says, weapons of mass destruction. What do you think he's going to say? He's going to say, no, I don't believe that. Show it to me. Okay? So your argument has to be about Donald Trump if you're Joe Kent. But notice it's not. Why wouldn't you make it about Donald Trump? Why would you say, and you are the best president ever? You just got us into a war that is serving only Israel and not America. If that's what you believe, why would you say, and it's an honor and a kissy, 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 I love you so much? You wouldn't say that unless you're trying to hold on to him to be able to hold the people who are MAGA. Notice Donald Trump, they're MAGA on both sides. They're not split on Donald Trump. Okay? They're split on the policies, but he is the policy. He is the guy making the policy. But everybody who splits from him, they know, split from his policy, they know, keep him happy. Keep him in line. He's our guy. He's our guy. He's our guy. But look at this policy. This is horrible. This is the worst thing ever. It's the Jews that are doing that. Well, no, excuse me. If you believe that, then you have to say Donald Trump is in with the Jews because he's not a moron. So he must knowingly be doing these things, because that's what Donald Trump always said about politicians. Why do we get into these wars? Why do we get into bad trade deals? Because our presidents don't know what they're doing and they're idiots. So if you believe Donald Trump is smart enough to recognize that situation in others, then you have to say, if you believe what Joe Kent did, you have to say Donald Trump's smart enough to recognize he's in bed making the same mistakes that all the other presidents made. But they don't do it. This is all about politics. This is about the next election. Right now, you are being shaped. I want you to start looking at the news in a different way. I want you to start looking at the news. This is so cynical, and I hate this. But I want you to start looking at all of the news when it comes to MAGA as who wins if I believe this? What do they gain if I believe this? They gain half of MAGA. Because there is that split going on right now. Am I wrong, Ricky? You see where I'm going?
Oh, I see where you're going. And honestly, there's probably some of these folks that would love nothing more than to have President Trump's endorsement.
Exactly right. So you can stay on his good side. You have to have his good side. You have to remain on his good side if you want to hold any part of MAGA. And both sides of MAGA now love Donald Trump. And I've not been able to work that out in my head. How? You're going against all of his policies, but he is the policy. I mean, I stood in the hallway with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and had a conversation with both. And I've never seen I've had conversations at this level before, and I've never seen politicians do this ever before. What is happening? You guys are on fire right now. Both of them separately. One, JD came in after I was talking to Marco, but Marco was there when JD said it. And I said, Marco just said the same thing. It's not us. We go in every morning and he tells us this is what we're doing today. We're just doing it. It's him. It's him. It's him. So nobody's duping the president. Nobody is. This is not the fault of Marco Rubio, not the fault of Pete Hegseth, not the fault of the CIA. It is Donald Trump. He deserves all the credit and all the blame if you don't like it. You can't give him all the credit and none of the blame. Otherwise, he's not the guy you think he is. And believe me, he is the guy you think he is. So, again, I don't have anything to back this up in fact. So don't take my word as gospel. But I'm looking for things that make sense. This doesn't make sense. He turned on a dime. Turned on a dime. So that is either outside influence, which it could be, or it's more cynical than that. It's, I see a way to play a role in MAGA after this president is done. I'm positioning myself to play some role in MAGA 2028, and I'm putting my chips in the anti-Israel MAGA movement. I think that's what's happening. Could be wrong. Again, I just say we could solve this. Show me the proof. Show me the proof, Joe. And by the way, Ricky just gave me a tweet that said, what was it? You said it was a tweet or was it?
Oh, there was lots of tweets about yesterday's commentary that it went viral. People are saying, I've never heard you tell anyone else, I don't want your opinion. I want facts until just now.
What? No, you can have an opinion, but you need the facts first. You have to have the facts first. That is something I've been saying for the last few weeks. Once we got into this war, I said, I have been watching the news and everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion. Can you give me any facts first? Then tell me what it means. I don't need your opinion. You don't need. I said in that monologue yesterday, I don't want to be somebody where you're taking my opinion and just running with my opinion. My opinion is my opinion. As I said yesterday, I have an ass and an opinion, and they're both worth the same thing. When it comes to things like this, when we're trying to figure things out, when we are looking at all of this, something this important, you have to start with the facts. And again, because I know one of them said, Glenn, why don't you produce your facts that it didn't happen? Did you grow up in Russia? Where'd you grow up? Because I grew up in the United States of America. The accuser presents the facts. The accused is innocent until proven guilty. So you could make that case. I might even believe you. If you have the facts, I might even, without facts, be inclined to believe you that, yep, I bet you the CIA is doing that kind of stuff. Might even be inclined. But that doesn't make the person guilty. That doesn't mean that what you said is true. Produce the facts. Prove the guilt. I don't have to prove the innocent. You have to prove the guilt. That's the way it works in America. Back in a minute. Something happening right now a lot of people hoped they would see, they wouldn't see again in their lifetime, and that is rampant anti-Semitism. I mean, I was just talking to Tommy Robinson yesterday, and, we were talking, he said, Glenn, you were saying that this was coming, in the early 2000s when he was just as he was first getting arrested. Everybody said that was nuts. It is here, gang. It is here. And it's getting worse. And for a lot of Jewish families, that has changed the feeling of everyday life in places that used to feel safe, places that used to feel like, everything is normal. Well, it's not normal anymore. And in Israel, it's really different. Moments like this is why standing with the Jewish people right now matters so much. You don't have to support Israel, the wars, or anything else. But do you believe that the Jewish people have a right to exist and live? I do. Join me, will you? International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. They've been around for a long time, and they have been helping people in Israel and Jewish people around the world live a safer life. 888-488-IFCJ, 888-488-IFCJ, or go online, find out what they do, and give. Join, take a stand. IFCJ.org. That's IFCJ.org.
Glenn Beck.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. Still got a very good debate going on in the Torch Insider chat. If you're not subscribed, if you're not in on this debate, you really need to get to it because this is pretty much what the Insider is all about. For us having respectful conversations, respectful debates, and coming to the truth, which I love to see. And I'm going to get to some of the big comments that I've seen. I copied a few of them down. Just in a couple of seconds. But I wanted to show this poll. Producer Matt, throw this up. So this is the approval of what the president is doing in Iran. There's this narrative that there's a MAGA split. And that's completely false. If you're looking at these polls. Now, one poll, two poll, there's multiple polls that are showing there is no split. So out of MAGA Republicans, this is per an NBC poll, 90% of MAGA Republicans agree with the Iran strikes. Now, 77% of Republicans, non-MAGA Republicans, they still support it. Then you get down to the left, and of course they're gonna be against it because they're against everything. They'll be for the war in Ukraine, but they won't be for this one, which it's all party line split. But also CNN has very similar numbers. YouGov, very similar numbers. So there is a myth that there is a MAGA split on it. There's not. I would say there's a minority within people on the right that do not agree with it. And I'm not being derogatory towards that minority because I was going to ask Glenn to address maybe some of the people that voted for Donald Trump, and the reason they voted for him was because he was anti-war and they didn't want to see wars. But now we're seeing a lot more military action. So if you want to talk about like an ideological shift, clearly the president has had an ideological shift. Now, the real question would be, why did the president have that ideological shift? Does he believe we have to do these things now to get us away from a much bigger conflict going forward? These are all good questions to ask. I would love for someone to actually get into that with him, but we don't really see that from the media. They don't really ask those types of questions. But I think that if you are split on it, get all the facts, like Glenn was talking about, and find out why the president had that ideological shift. Maybe that could help you address, why you're so strongly against this action, which completely, and that's not derogatory. That's just that's an opinion, and I'm glad you have it. This is America. Going to some of your comments and parts of this debate, Republic Saver said, I don't know. I've completely flipped my perspective on Israel these past 3 years. I guess that makes me anti-Semitic, huh, Jason? No. Kent sure as heck was closer than anyone here. So I'm curious, Republic Saver, why your perspective on Israel has just changed over the past 3 years, because what they want to do has never been a secret, which is protect their country and eliminate the country that says death to Israel, and is trying to encircle them through proxy militias to specifically destroy Israel. They haven't flipped on that at all, and it does not make you anti-Semitic to question a nation. So Israel has their own foreign policy objectives, their own needs that they could be different from ours, different from any other country. That's just like any country in the world. It does not make you anti-Semitic. What is not cool is if you don't have any evidence to anything, like what Joe Kent did. If you don't present any evidence, and if you're just saying that Israel is affecting the United States and pushing the United States and do that, that comes dangerously close to the trope of Jews control the world. That's what makes it very similar. But it doesn't make you anti-Semitic. But let's get into more of this later. It's a good debate. Back to Glenn.
All right, some questions from torch bearers.
A lot of folks want to know what makes criticism of the idea that Israel may have dragged us into the war. Why is that anti-Semitic?
Because you're blaming Israel for one, and I've already gone through that. So that doesn't make that anti-Semitic, but you're targeting the wrong one. It should be you're targeting the CIA or the president, because that's the one who made the decision. And anti-Semitic because of the stew that we're all soaking in right now. If this was said 15 years ago or whatever, it wouldn't have been. But right now, there is this deep split on hate the Jews. You add this into it, and it becomes anti-Semitic.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Butchell. I'm glad we have this segment now. It's the longest one of the day, so we can really get into the nuts and bolts of this debate that Glenn is talking about with Joe Kent, why he left. And then there's some people that are in the chat that are on one side. There's some that are on the other side, and that's perfectly fine. But let's talk it through. And then if you're not a subscriber, if you have not gone to glennbeck.com/torch and subscribed, you're going to miss out on some of this stuff. And I really do not want you to miss out on it, because this is America. We are an informed citizenry. America is advanced citizenry. It really is. We have the freedom and the ability to have these respectful debates. And that's one of the reasons why this is the greatest country in the world. So I love it. I love everything that you're saying in the chat. I'm glad for every single one of you that is there and is contributing. So thanks for being here. I'm going to give a sneak preview of the George AI, if we don't run out of time, which is all about the rule of law, making accusations, the burden of proof, a lot of those fundamental principles on the justice system within the country. That's going to be today's George AI. That is going to be available, as per usual, at the end of the show today. But I will give you an animated George preview of that coming up soon, unless I run out of time. But eventually today. You know how it works. You've been with me all this time. You know how it works. So back to tying up what Republic Saver said, which I'll restate. I don't know if I've completely flipped my perspective on Israel these past 3 years. I guess that makes me anti-Semitic, Jason, right? Kent sure as heck was closer than anyone here. So what we now know is that even though Kent was in his position, he was there. I guess proximity-wise, you can say he's closer, but proximity does not equal knowledge. So from what everyone has said, he had zero information about the justifications. He had zero information about the planning, zero information about any of it. He didn't. And it is a complete 180-degree shift from what he believed then. Uh-oh, I'm going to get in trouble. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do I need to be brought up? It is, he had no information unless he was getting information from somebody who might have agreed with him later in a similar role or higher role.
So if he was given that information, I'd love to see it.
So would I.
But
don't dismiss, again, think 2028.
Yeah. I feel like Ricky's telling you something right now.
I don't think so. Jason?
Yeah. Can you hear me? You got me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Glenn. So, yeah. I don't really know what to say about the information he either had or did not have. It doesn't appear like he did have it, or who knows what the heck he did have or what his plans were. But I'm definitely not. So Republicans say, I'm not calling you anti-Semitic. The problem is if your perspective is changing on Israel over the past 3 years, why has your perspective changed? Because the Israeli strategic objectives, diplomatic, everything, those have not changed over the last 3 years at all. In fact, they've wanted to do more. We've held them back. And we have held them back going all the way to the 1960s and 70s. So they have never influenced, they've never told us, you cannot do that, and we have, from some weird power, we're going to manipulate you. And that's never been the case. There's no evidence that has ever been the case. So the problem is, where the anti-Semitism thing comes into, is that plays into the trope of Jews control the world. Well, you better have some pretty solid evidence on that to make that claim. And I've never seen that claim. So when the anti-Semitism thing comes in, it's because there's that trope, and you're getting close to it if you don't have any information that says why you came to this decision. I'm not calling you anti-Semitic. That's not the point. That's not the point at all. And that seems that's kind of one of those kind of like my issue with saying